For anyone who will be joining us later in this space, we are going to be joined by Jason Lamont, who last week was at Glastonbury and has some really amazing stories to share, and it's not his first, and I don't think it will be his last Glastonbury. Well, let's see what he says once he joins. And one of his friends might be joining us as well, who is a visual artist that supported many of the acts at Glastonbury. Amazing VJ, amazing performances. So hopefully we'll have them joining us later. Hi, Tommy D.
Hey there. Just so glad to be here. Very cool to, I love this topic. So yes, as we get more people on, of course, hello, Tommy. Hello, sir.
And also just thinking about what do we want from our experiences of music festivals of the future. So how are we going to use NFTs and other Web3 tools and protocols to just change our experience and bookmark our life and remember our lives, like our memorabilia. So some of the things are already in practice today, but how can we take more steps just to get our on-chain experiences off-chain, especially at gigs, concerts, and festivals like Glastonbury?
Yeah, I love that idea, Jess, and that's definitely part of the conversation today is how the technology and music is merging together, and specifically when you're talking about tickets, having that extra utility other than it's a memorabilia piece of paper. So I'll be very interested in but yeah, Glastonbury 2022. Pretty big hitters, heavy hitters, and surprises in that show.
Tim, I'm finding it really difficult to hear you, mate.
Got it. Okay, let me rejoin.
Shall I put a little bit of mood music on while we're waiting for the...
Go ahead, Tommy. Are you going to sing for us again? But what I'd really like to see from in festivals of the future is minting moments, flash mob minting moments. So how does it become more seamless? And when everyone becomes more Web3 native, minting moments, and we're just going to be so adept and so used to using blockchain in our day-to-day lives, we won't have to be a back-end developer to create our own, to self-mint. It'll just be a normal thing, just as
Here's a little bit of space music underneath for the feeling of like minting as you're at a festival. It's like, oh my God, what is going on here? It's getting hard. Oh, it's getting more and more exciting. I kind of like I always thought that there was a lot. Oh gosh, that's a bit of a dodgy chord going on there, isn't it? I'll just turn that down instead. Oh.
But Tommy, wouldn't it be fun if...
I think I'm a bit Vangelis.
Say for example, at Glasgow or at Burning Man, especially at Burning Man, when the music, the gigs that you're seeing, they're not scheduled. You're just wandering around the desert, and if you happen to see Major Lazer or Daft Punk, you're just at the right place at the right time in the desert. And imagine minting that moment, that POAP, that proof of attendance protocol, that you just happen to be at the right spot in the desert to catch that act. It's like that saying, no picture or it didn't happen, or no POAP or it didn't happen.
Enhance 15 to 23.
Oh, hang on. Someone's talking to us. I love being able to play music on these spaces. It's so cool. I agree. I think he's talking again. Hang on. I think we'll go for something else in a minute. I think the thing is the essence of music is live. I mean, look, you could sit at home and listen to music, or you can drive in your car and listen to music, and you can sit on the tube or whatever and listen to music. But it's a very sort of personal moment. That the whole concept about, I think, music is it brings people together. And whether it's in a concert or a festival, nightclub, it's in a bar and they put on Guns N' Roses or something and everyone sings along to it. It's like it brings people together. I think one of the things that when I first started making music, and particularly around the time of the kind of early days of house music, was this tremendous feeling of being, it doesn't matter who, everyone's the same on the dance floor. That's what we always used to say. It doesn't matter who you are, we're all equal on the dance floor, and that feeling of kind of bringing each other together through a live experience. I think that, and as I always say, you can NFT anything. So you've just got to use your imagination. What is it that people would want? What gives them something that in the live experience that maybe they can't get at the moment, and that the NFT technology allows them to do. So I think there's a huge amount of opportunity here, and I think you're going to see, I would argue that probably music NFTs in regards to live will be front and center of where the music NFT concept really takes off. I think adoption is a great, live is great for adoption. I think it's really, really good because if you incorporate, these like the Meta glasses or the Apple glasses or whatever, these kind of mixed criteria kind of glasses that are coming, we're going to see over the next sort of year or two. You incorporate that into a live experience with music, or then it's going to go off. It's going to go off. So yeah, I think there's a lot to do. I want to remind everybody to retweet the room, please. If you do, it's going to be great for everybody. Let's get some more people in. We're going to have some great people talking about stuff. Tim, how's your week, mate? How is everything?
It's doing good. Hopefully you can hear me better now.
Yeah, kind of. It sounds a little bit like you're underwater sometimes. That's all.
That's because I am. I generally, am underwater. That's how I like to do the show.
Yeah, well, so do I. I tend to like being either underwater or like, about 100 feet in the air, floating in space. Here we go, back to the space again. Here we go. We've got Daft Punk now. Hey, bit of Daft Punk from Tron. I'm floating through space. So yeah, we were just saying, Tim, I don't know if you heard what I was saying there, but I think actually if there's a thing that's going to really drive adoption into NFTs, it's live. It's where, being amongst other people and kind of challenging each other, doing a live auction. Can you imagine doing a live auction in a club or a festival gig or something like that, where you're actually bidding for the singer's baseball cap,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm marrying the tangible with the actual other piece of it. When you have something digital that you're backing up with the tangible, it's great utility, as it were, for the space anyway. Hopefully that's here.
Yes, just about. Sorry. Can you guys just give me like a minute? I've just got to do something. And talk amongst yourselves and then I'll be back. 1 second.
Sure thing, Tommy. Well, I feel like there's different stages of this. So if you're minting a moment, say if you're at a flash mob event, or like we were talking before about Burning Man, you just happen to come across a certain gig because there's no festival lineup at Burning Man. You just it's word of mouth. It's very old school. You're riding your bike around the desert trying to find amazing artwork and amazing musical acts and light shows and sculptures and whatnot. But you mint that moment, you were there at that gig, and maybe if there's no live auction, but because you have the PO app that you were there at that moment, you are entitled to, that's your ticket to an auction later on that you get the baseball cap, like Tommy used that example just before. You then have that PO app as your entitlement to be part of the bids. So it's just these stages, like building upon one experience to the next, which is very interesting. And yeah, bringing you closer to the art and the creation and the spontaneity that is music, but it's all locked in the immutable blockchain.
Yeah, there's also bragging rights, Jess. That's the other part about it. You know, if you were at the Sex Pistols show with 12 others on the first show that happened to be members of Joy Division, the Happy Mondays, those types of things, inspiration, and there's some great history from the Glastonbury Free Festival. There's some really cool stuff there, and I know that that's going to be a bit of a focus on what we're talking about today, but also then, of course, as you said, the utility of getting or having an NFT as a ticket for a show. And Ticketmaster has done this with sports like the NFL. And so I do expect that we'll see more and more of this, even as a merchandise at the merch table. The QR code, something that you can purchase as a digital, not just a drum head or a drumstick or a t-shirt or a hoodie. Those types of things, which that proves to be something, again, that you have as a digital asset, or maybe you buy the hoodie and get the digital asset. Adidas has been very successful in that. But for music, sometimes these pieces of art, mixing it with music, is sort of a new frontier, and that's why TokenTraxx is doing what they're doing. They're evolving with this platform. They're evolving with the technology, and we've seen some very interesting performances at Glastonbury that it really brought everyone out this time around. I was really impressed by it. I do think we're getting some more people on, and I want to make sure we get Tommy back, and then we'll start officially. We'll start with it as we go through.
And I'm also hoping that Richard Rauser, who's on the TokenTraxx team, head of innovation, will be joining us because he just got back from New York. So a little bit of FOMO there, but it's interesting to hear what was happening at NFT NYC and how what we're seeing in the NFT space is going to just start becoming everyday practice in music festivals and gigs across the board.
Yeah, there were some amazing performers at NFT NYC. You had Steve Aoki, and you had Madonna. You had some pretty good participation for not only the enthusiasts that are musicians, but having that as part of the performance and seeing how they actually participate in the space. Very cool. So yeah, it'll be good to hear from Richard and to get his point of view for what was going down at NFT NYC.
I think there was sorry, I'm back again now, guys. Apologies about that. Just had to sort out dinner for my family, usual. You got to remember you're a family man. Hey, I'm a family man. So I think my sort of take of looking at what I think what's interesting about today's space is that we can connect NFT NYC and Glastonbury together, and I'm going to explain how we're going to do that. The thing is what happened at NFT NYC was a lot of live events that were based around static images of moonbirds and apes and whatever and doodles all announced music. And in fact, if anybody talked about it, the thing that was promoted was the music. Okay, you had at the apes, you had Eminem and Snoop, you had doodles announcing Pharrell, you had moonbirds with Tame Impala. It's like none of these events that they did had anyone up on stage drawing a doodle or whatever. I know I think in Moonbirds, I think Kevin Rose was up doing something, I think with which I'm sure Rich will be able to explain, but you know what I mean. That to me is a really telling sign that there was that the thing that everyone talked about was the music at the event. The event was great. The Ape Fest was brilliant. Snoop played. Eminem played, and it really, we've got to just take a step back and remind how important music is in our lives as a whole kind of concept, how integral it is to our lives. And also, here's an example of how music, the thing that was the feature, the thing that was the bonus, the thing that was the great thing of all these static image projects was the music. It was like, yeah, the community's great and the community's all there and we're all apes together and all that. But it's the music that everyone's talking about. It's the fact that Snoop turned up, the fact that Eminem turned up. So I think this is a really important thing to remember, that we're still finding our feet here in the NFT world, and music is really finding its feet. But as a medium, as an artistic, emotional medium, music is always going to be front and center and always going to take the headlines, which is what it happened at NFT NYC. Now, how does that work in relation to Glastonbury? Right. Well, bring it back again. If Glastonbury is a community, which it is, if you go to Glastonbury, you're part of a community of people. You've got the lucky one that got the ticket. Then that community spirit is it's personified by the music that's there. By Kendrick playing Sunday and McCartney playing Saturday and Billie Eilish playing Friday and all the hundreds and hundreds of incredible bands that play all over Glastonbury. For those that haven't been to Glastonbury is, I believe, one of the greatest experiences I've ever had the fortunate of actually going to. And I've been to many Glastonburys, well into the teens. I've been to, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's somewhere between 15 and 20 Glastonburys I've been to. And I don't go for the headliners. I never have done. I've always gone for the little bands, the interesting tents, the kind of weird things that are going on, the Mutoid Waste Company, and these incredible things that you go along. I actually also don't like going to Glastonbury with lots of people. In fact, I invariably go on my own, and I just walk, and I walk and walk and walk and walk and walk, and I go and wander around and wander around. You end up doing probably, no word of a lie, you easily could do 20 to 30 miles a day walking around Glastonbury and just wandering in and out of tents and wandering in and out of places. And so that kind of concept, that community, oh my God, that is ripe for wrapping up into an NFT membership kind of thing. If you go to this part of Glastonbury, you can go into that bit, and you can't go, but you can't necessarily go into that bit or whatever. There is so many opportunities, I feel, for NFTs in a festival live experience, and I think Glastonbury would be the perfect one to do it with. And without giving too much away, they may well be doing it. That's all I'm going to say on that subject.
I like that you're going ting-tings on this, Tommy, with the walk. I just thought I'd throw that in there. Little ting-tings walk.
What's ting-tings? What's that?
Ting-tings. You know the band Ting-tings, the two-part band?
Yes,
yeah.
I've seen them a few times in Australia. Pretty good.
Yeah, that's not my name. That's not my name, right?
Yeah, Tommy, can you
Yes,
do
but
me a
they walk.
favor? Could you please invite Jason Lamont as a speaker, please? My phone is not being very nice today.
I absolutely did. I've invited Jason to speak.
Rich, how are you, mate? Good to have you here in the TokenTraxx, eco world.
Yeah, happy to be here. I got back to New York 2 days ago and had a pretty phenomenal experience there.
So tell us a little bit about your experience. Obviously, I don't know if you heard what I was rambling on about just then, but I was actually regaling some of the things that you told me about the music side. But I mean, given that we are a music based company that looks at Web3, how we can innovate, all musicians' lives and creators and curators and collectors' lives with Web3 technology. What did you what did you think about the music presence in NFT NYC?
Well, there was an awful lot of it. It was my first NFT.NYC, so I don't have a huge lot to compare it to, but the quality of the artists at all of the parties was extremely high. And what I really enjoyed about it, I went to several of the parties, and of course there were artists at the event itself, musicians at the event itself. But what I really liked about it is that if you remember certain communities, for instance, the Party to Gens community, they threw a party with Diplo on a Thursday night, and it was maybe 150 people in the Palace, New York City. It's very rare that you can see an artist like Diplo with only 450 people in attendance. Usually, he attracts thousands, and that's very cool. Also did the Moon Boots party. They had Mixmaster Mike there. They had Tame Impala. That was a pretty incredible show. And then earlier in the day, there was the Proof Collective party. Thievery Corporation played at that one, a little bit old school, but they were churning out some good music. Music was front and center of a lot of things. Probably one of the highlights for me, Doodles. They're doing a lot of really interesting stuff with Doodles too, I gotta say. Big supporter of that project. Of course, they announced that Pharrell is now going to be their chief creative officer, which is a huge coup, I think, for them. I would say music is definitely at the front and center of what was going on at NFT NYC.
I totally agree about the Doodles project. I love the Doodles project. I love the artwork first and foremost. It got me straight away. Stupidly, never bought one, but there you go. There's always time. Now, let's think about this for a minute. They've announced Pharrell as their creative director. What do you think Doodles can bring to Pharrell and Pharrell can bring to Doodles?
Well, what's going to be really cool is that Doodles 2, the plan is to actually produce millions of these NFTs. They want everyone to have their own Doodle 2 to represent who they are. You're going to be able to accessorize them with a different hat or facial hair, what have you. And then also one of the things that you can accessorize your Doodles 2 with is going to be music. So there'll be background music playing while you kind of look at the doodle, and it'll be animated as well. They're planning to incorporate animations. So we're seeing NFTs evolve from being largely static and into things that are more interactive, and then also incorporate other artistic elements like music. And Doodles, I think, is going to be leading the charge in that regard. I'm sure we're going to be seeing other projects that announce similar things soon.
Yeah, I think that's a really a project as large as Doodles is a great proof of concept kind of way, of leading it into where does it go? What could it actually be? What could it actually do as a doodle? Where can it go? I love the concept. I love the concept they're bringing in music. Do you think did they give any indication as to what Pharrell's role would be other than creative director?
Well, I think I think chief creative officer is what they've said he's going to be. They didn't really explain a lot about what that was going to involve.
Well, there's a surprise.
But I imagine he's going to be curating the music that is on offer with the Doodles 2 release. That's what I would speculate, but we can't say for certain. But I do really like the idea that you're going to be able to customize your doodle and make it really personal, because right now, if you want, a Bored Ape that looks like you, or, incorporates elements that really work for you, you've got to make sure, you've got to, hope that the right buyer is selling, at that the right seller, I should say, is offering theirs for sale at that given point in time when you want to buy. And Doodles 2, of course, is going to do away with that, with the ability to customize your avatar effectively. I think that's very cool. The one thing I would say, I think Doodles, this is something I'm always kind of acutely aware of, I think Doodles is on the cusp of making their offering a little too complicated right now, because they've got the concept of Genesis boxes, and then they've got the concept of duplicators that bring traits from the OG Doodles project into Doodles 2, and these various things. I think right now, to really understand Doodles, you need to do a bit of homework. I hope they're not going to complicate it a little too much. I think they're kind of at the cusp, something they've got to watch out for.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think, a common criticism of perhaps quite a lot of blockchain-y stuff, is that sometimes it can get overly complicated for the average person in the street. But I suppose that's part of its appeal. And maybe what they're looking at is, well, where do we sit in the current sort of, ecosystem of these, blue chip kind of NFT projects? It's like, what is our thing? And maybe that they are kind of edging, because it's funny, because you would have thought Moonbirds would be the kind of, the more crypto-y, edgy thing with Kevin Rose and everything behind it, but with and just purely by the artwork with Doodles, which is always a little bit, it's a bit, it's a bit childish, it's a bit silly, but it's also kind of cool as well. I see them. I would have thought they would want to try and be a bit more accessible, but you never know. I mean, the brilliant thing about this space is that there is no following a rule book. No one's following any kind of rule book here. We're
That's
just
right.
kind of plucking things out of the air and hoping for the best. I think there's a saying which is, you know, throw enough whatever at the wall and watch, hoping some of it stick. I kind of think that's a little bit derogatory, but it is true. I think that, you know, all of us all the time, and I know we do this all the time in TokenTraxx, isn't it? We're sort of sitting there going, well, we could do this and we could do that, and because there's no sort of precedence being set by anybody else a lot of the time, we are just kind of going, I think this. I mean, I think from a music perspective, you know, Jason and people like myself and Miles, you know, we've lived with artists for 20, 30 odd years. We kind of know how music connects with people, and we kind of know what is good and bad music. I think, you know, nobody really knows that, but I think when you've experienced a lot of music making like I have, you do after a while get to know pretty quickly what you think is going to work on certain different levels with people. And so, you know, I think translating that into the concept of NFTs at the beginning of before you jumped on, Rich, we were talking about the opportunities of festivals in the NFT space and the opportunities of that. Actually, to that end, we've got Jason. Jason, how are you, my brother?
Hey, Tommy, good mate. Yeah, I was actually listening to your you talk about Glastonbury earlier, and yeah, I was lucky enough to go. And what made me think Glastonbury really is an in real life metaverse, isn't it? If you've been and wandered around the place for 3 or 4 days, so much culture, so much music, so much art, so much. You know, there's politics. It's loaded with love, and you know, I personally can't wait for the moment when the Glastonbury experience can be brought to 1 billion people via a metaverse, you know, experience, or even a VR experience, you know. And I think that, you know, whoever comes up with that concept and can replicate Burning Man and Glastonbury for everybody sitting at home would be, you know, onto an absolute genius idea. So that got me thinking about that, because Glastonbury is everything I'd want my metaverse to be anyway. So, you know, and you talked about sort of access to events, and I guess that's how NFTs can play a part in that, because if you can imagine building these communities around, say, Arcadia, you know, Block 9, people longing to go and experience that, then, you know, through NFTs, you could have access to them in a virtual world. That was my takeout from the weekend, apart from, you know, sore feet and, you know, just in awe of all the amazing talent there.
That's the thing, though, isn't it? How are they going to replicate the mud and the sore feet in the metaverse? That's the, you know, because the thing that I always say to people who are kind of Glastonbury like virgins is like, well, there are 2 Glastonburys. There is, you know, and it's depending entirely on the weather. I mean, there are many Glastonburys, but there are definitely 2 Glastonburys. If you get a sunny Glastonbury, it's a different kind of vibe than if you get a wet, you know, muddy Glastonbury. If you get a wet, muddy Glastonbury, it's like we're all in this together. We've survived. It's like it's like being on Survivor or something like that. You know, it's like, oh my God. But if you get a sunny one, then it's a slightly different vibe, because it's all like, you don't get the mud, but you don't kind of get that slight camaraderie. And then, of course, with the sun as well, you get this like kind of, you know, it can be quite tiring, because, you know, well, actually, it's been quite tiring wading through mud. I remember when I was in Adele's Glastonbury was about 4 or 5 years ago, and it was I think one of the muddiest I've been to, and I've been to one in '97, which was reportedly the most muddy, but I think the Adele one was more muddy. Anyway, and I mean, I was exhausted walking around those, because you're just wading through mud. Anyway, that's Glastonbury. Jason,
but it's a utopia, and everybody returns on a massive downer. Not because of the substance abuse, because of the experience they had and longing for that feeling to exist in eternity. That's my general takeout from Glastonbury every time, is why can't life be just like that playground every day of the week, you know? And again, it's why I try and associate it with metaverse experiences and Web3 and where we're going, and hope that we can create these experiences.
That's a really...
and that feeling.
That's a great point, though, because, you know, human nature being what it is, if we did live in Glastonbury 365 days of the year, we would find things to complain about it, and we'd get bored, and it would be, you know, that it wouldn't be the same. So us being able to chip into Glastonbury for 3 or 4 days once a year is that it's like going on holiday. It's like, oh yeah, I'd love going on holiday to Greece, but if I lived in Greece, it'd be a completely different experience. So in that respect, I suppose, well, actually, you know what? I'm going to phrase that to Rich. Rich, if you were creating Glastonbury in the metaverse, what would you want? You know, what would you think people would want? How would you want to kind of like, what experiences would you give to people that wouldn't, because ultimately you don't want it to be like exactly like Glastonbury. I mean, it's never going to be
No.
exactly like Glastonbury, but what do you think, what would you want to try and take and kind of mirror into a metaverse kind of concept?
Well, look, I've never actually been to Glastonbury, but I have been to Burning Man twice, and I hear there's similarities there. And I think the key thing you want to
very similar.
I think the key thing you want to recreate is the opportunity for serendipity. You know, the opportunity for random things to come at you, random things to happen. I think a lot of metaverses right now, they're almost too open, and there's too little going on. And so you don't have that opportunity for just, you know, coming across a random kind of tent city that has some sort of crazy musical performance art going on, or, you know, coming across a random art car. It's just too difficult right now. And I think we need to work on ways to improve the chances of those kind of random moments happening. And that's what I would want out of the metaverse experience.
And to your point about boredom, Tommy, I'm not sure you actually would get bored, because the beauty of it is being able to wander into a tent where someone's giving a talk about, you know, climate crisis, or, you know, spirituality, or how to live a better, more ethical life. And so it provided that the people behind the engine could, or the community behind it, could be contributing to what's going on in those tents and in those little breakout spaces and those little, you know, healing fields, then it will be an eternal source of sort of inspiration and creativity. By nature of the fact that it's open source, maybe.
Yeah, and I suppose that, but I mean, I suppose, isn't that what's happening in the metaverse already? Is well, in some of the metaverses, obviously, the thing that I was always a bit disappointed about with metaverse was that you had to buy land, which I always was a bit like, can you just like have it like for free, and anybody could just wants to come in and build shit can build shit? That's, you know, of course that's not how it's going to be, because someone is always going to commercialize everything in this world. But it would have been kind of nice if anybody could just, I mean, Rich, is there a metaverse out there that is entirely free and you just come in and build things into it if you've got the money to build it, but you own it? You don't necessarily have to buy the land.
Right. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that one, Tommy. Yeah, none that I'm familiar with anyway.
Yeah, and so I suppose, you know, that going back to the concept of what would Glastonbury look like in the metaverse, I suppose the beauty of, as you say, Jason, of Glastonbury is this incredible diversity of culture, and that you're experiencing, you know, whether it, obviously all the headline acts always get the main, you know, news, but really it's, as I said earlier on, Glastonbury is not about that. For those that know Glastonbury, you have to get out there and see things. And I suppose in a way that's kind of what you would want from metaverse, is the mystery of what's around the corner. Where are you going? What do you know? What's going to turn up, basically?
Well, and the opportunity to bump into a few like-minded people in a talk about women's rights and form a DAO.
Yeah.
There you go. And you wander somewhere else, and you talk about a climate crisis or a climate crisis related issue, and because there's infinite amount of people can go into that room and listen to that chat and exchange those ideas like they would in the Discord, but they're doing it in the virtual tent. They form a committee and form a DAO, and they go off and start changing the world.
And actually, interestingly, I mean, to that point, going back to NFT NYC, this kind of tribal thing whereby, you know, if, oh, I'm sorry, you don't own an ape, you're not coming in. It's like, you know, it's your name's not down, you're not coming in. It's literally an extension of the whole concept of the velvet rope nightclub, you know, getting into the nightclub when you're somebody and when you're not. Yeah. I mean,
you're spot on there, Tommy.
You know what I mean? And yeah. but I mean, look, that's human nature, you know, because that's what people respond to, is that kind of status.
what I would say is that, you know, a lot of the parties at NFT NYC, there were a lot of people outside, you know, begging, you know, can I be your +1 for this party or that party? And because most of the invites, you know, if you hold the NFT, then you do get a +1. And I guess people were very aware of that. But I got to admit, you know, I was there on my own. I let in a few people to some of the parties I went to. I have no compunction about that. But,
I hope they bought you a drink, mate.
Oh yeah, I made sure of that. Yeah. But to be honest, the drinks are free anyway. But you know, worthwhile to send them to the bar and not have to wait for them yourself.
Well, there you go. That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So okay, going back to Jason, going back to Glastonbury. What do you know? Same question to you that I asked, like Rich. What would you like to see apart from the ability to sort of wander into rooms and create DAOs or whatever? Which I love that concept, by the way. I think it's a really cool idea. What else would you like to see from a sort of the Glastonbury in the metaverse?
Well, there have to be collaboration or the opportunity to collaborate. You know, show off your dancing skills on stage with little Sims. You know, get involved.
That's sick. That's a great idea.
You know, find ways to involve the audience, you know, and we're already working towards that anyway. You know, that's happening. But, you know, in that type of environment, you know, we could be in real time, we could be creating music. We could be, you know, we could be doing a lot. That's what I'd like to see.
What did you see any kind of, as you were traipsing around Glastonbury, wandering into room after room and tent after tent, did you see any kind of evidence of any sorts of NFT activity or sort of discussion around blockchain or anything?
No, not really, because it tends to be more about either the weather or the music. But you know, I know there were some guys there, Volta XR, who were working in the gas tower with Bonobo and a few other artists up there in Block 9, and I think they were doing something quite interesting with their interactive, you know, mixed media platform, where you know that I don't know if you have heard of Volta XR, but it's essentially it can plug into whatever source from your desk, and it'll program the visuals to react to the music, and you can also allow people watching from home, say via YouTube, to tap a keyword into chat and change what's going on in the room or change what's going on out there at the festival. So I think that has potential, I think, for NFT experiences to be, you know, baked in or bolted onto it. And I thought that was quite interesting because there was a lot of excitement around that idea and what was going on there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We are coming up to just past 6:10 in the UK here. We've got about another 20 minutes of this room to do it. Please remember to, you know, retweet the room as always. Let's see you get a few more people in. We've got some nice alpha coming on here. Have we got a giveaway? Am I right in saying we got a giveaway? Oh, silence on the giveaway. Not sure if we do. Jess, are you there? Do we have a giveaway?
Not this space.
Okay.
Space.
Ooh. Well, I'm sure we can think of something to give away by the end of the day. But anyway, so going back to Glastonbury and going back to metaverses. Okay, so NFT NYC, and then of course NFT NYC. NFT NYC, I thought was sadly lacking from what I saw of music. I mean, the music projects were quite low down on the list of interest. What do you think, Rich? Did you get that?
So they did have a music track. So basically NFT NYC, it's so big these days, you know, 15,000 people in attendance. They've got 1,500 speakers, and they break it down into several tracks. And one of them was music. But I got to say, and I hate to admit this, but many of the presentations I saw on that track were just so dull. And quite frankly, quite obvious, nothing too under the hood, nothing too exciting. And also a lot of the artists that were brought in to demonstrate what they were doing in terms of NFTs didn't seem to have a clue. So I know that sounds a little bit negative, but I was a little disappointed in the music track as a whole, despite there being many bright spots otherwise in other places.
Yeah, I think that's a shame. You know, I think it's because possibly, and you know, I'm far be it for me to second guess what other people and why the artists think this way. I still feel that the jury's out a little bit for most people to understand where the benefit of a music NFT is. From my perspective, what I believe is that music NFTs should be wrapped up into experiences. As it stands right now, that is something that I think is very valuable. And a fan of an artist will always go that extra mile for that artist. So if you can wrap that concept, that belief, that devotion, say, into an NFT project, then I think there's something really valuable there. And I think as we go into this recession of all mother of all recessions, which unfortunately I think we all agree is on the horizon, that's that's not going to, I don't think that will affect people as such. I think a lot of people will still want that. They might not be able to pay as much for it, but they're still going to want it. And I think desire is at the heart of every NFT project. If you want it, you desire it. So I think, wrapping up any experience that you can do for, and benefit for your fans within an NFT campaign is really important. And that's an ongoing process. It's not like sell the NFT today, disappear tomorrow. You have to have that ongoing process of connection through it, whether it's via Discord or a Zoom call every now and again, or a Telegram or whatever. You have to have that connection. So I think it's something that it's also a bit disappointing that the artists that you did see, the music artists that you did see, where you felt kind of inexperienced. What do you think they were getting wrong?
I think basically musicians were being onboarded to NFTs without being properly informed about what they were doing. So I don't actually know who this one particular person was, but he announced on stage that he was going to be the first person to release an NFT music album. And I was quite shocked. There were audible gasps in the audience because, of course, there's been many NFT albums launched at this point. And then one of the moderator, in fact, corrected him and said, actually, there's been quite a few of these. And he said, oh, yeah, maybe I've heard of one or two other projects that have launched music NFT albums. So I think maybe these artists, they're not being properly educated about the nature of the NFT environment before they release something. Maybe they're just not getting good enough advice. Maybe they need someone like TokenTraxx to help them out.
Well, that's why we're here, and nice segue there, mate, into that. Yeah, that's exactly what we do at TokenTraxx. We hold people's hands in this space and explain what's going on. It's a very, very fast moving space, and it changes all the time. And so as I said earlier, a lot of it is pretty undocumented, or certainly there's no kind of criteria around. There's no roadmap to follow. You're just sort of trying things out. I mean, there are some basics, like I said. If you follow that concept of I always say start with your assets as an artist, as a creator. What are your assets? Are you a songwriter? Are you a performer? Do you play an instrument? Do you make beats? What is it do you do? And were you all of those things? And then look at how you can wrap up experiences for your close fans into that. They may want to write a song with you. They may want to collaborate on a track, or they may just want to have half an hour with you to play through their music, and you tell them what you think about it, how they can help. There's all kinds of things that they might want to do that you could wrap up into an NFT concept, and you can take that into tiered levels of membership. It could be based around how many NFTs you own. If you own 5 of the artist's NFTs, you get more than if you just own one. There's many, 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 many things that you can do in this space, and look out there, go out and see what people are doing. There's some great artists out there that are doing brilliant things around NFT. Fifi Wrong, Nifty Sax, Dill, Domino, Josh Savage, Zach Gray. There's loads of great artists. So go and check it out. But also go and check out what we've done with 2 amazing artists, Max Rad and Rat Boy. Both NFTs are still available on TokenTraxx. Go and check them out. They're really, really cool. Max Rad has made a brilliant album, and he only released half of it on DSPs, and the other half he released as NFTs. And they're all amazing tracks. So go and check out his. And Rat Boys is really interesting. Rat Boy has come up with this concept called Dystopia, which is a game that he's put together, and we're at the first stages of that game. So go and check out his NFTs as well. You have to own an NFT to be playing the game. So just saying that, putting it out there. TokenTraxx, TokenTraxx. You've got it at the top there. We pinned it up there. Coming back to Glastonbury, Jason, what do you think you could do with the live music side of a festival that we could NFT? You know, how could you incorporate NFTs into the live side of what music happens when you're at a festival?
Oh, good question. Well, the thing about live music is it's spontaneous, and you're always going to get something very, very different when you're watching a live show, unexpected moments that you could capture, and they could be a combination of the visuals and supporting visuals, or the songs or moments of the songs themselves. I'm quite interested in the idea of I don't know. There's something about I feel there might be something in costume and stage dress, and what your favorite artists wear on stage, and having the opportunity to own that digital version of that only by being at that show.
I like that. That's a really cool idea. Yeah, you know, and then that way, when you met somebody in, Metapolis or Sandbox or whatever, Decentraland, whatever,
you were at that gig.
You were at that gig, yeah.
Yeah.
And only you would know that, only if you'd been at the gig and you didn't get the NFT, but someone else did. You'd be like, oh shit, yeah. Or you saw a picture of it, like, online or so. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting concept. I mean, again, that sort of proof of attendance sort of concept,
and taking real life back into into the metaverse. I love it.
Dropping. Sorry, go on, Jess, you can say.
I was just thinking, if we're trying to be really strict with proof of attendance protocol rules, imagine when you're in a real life gig and you're invited to get on stage to play the drums or do something like this, or get on stage just to dance, like Burning Man, again, going back to that example, people get on stage. If you can pull up that moment, but because you have that in your wallet, when you get to the metaverse version, you're only allowed to get on stage in the metaverse if you had done so in the real life. So it's putting some restrictions in a place that actually the metaverse should not have any restrictions, but it's kind of a play on that. So it's mimicking what really happened. Maybe it's a bit extreme.
No, I love it.
I can see that being pretty cool. Yeah, why not?
Anything is possible. This is it. This is the beauty of it. And artists, perpetually creating and innovating. So, they'll be the ones to lead all of these wonderful ideas once they embrace NFTs and embrace Web3. And, it's happening slowly, but surely. And I'm sure things like that will start to emerge.
That's right. Most of the events I went to at NFT.NYC, they would bring simulcasted, I guess you could say, into the metaverse, into Decentraland usually, and then sometimes just through a web viewer as well. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities to kind of build these kind of experiences that cross both in real life and the metaverse. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of that for sure, just like you described, Gus.
Yeah, I mean this is obviously where the digital asset, because at the moment the digital asset very firmly lives in Web 2 world. If it's your PFP or it's it's something that you have, a digital asset or whatever. We're seeing more and more digital assets appear in our everyday life, whether it's galleries opening up, or obviously, so there's incredible. Actually, I thought the Times Square footage that I saw of all the digital art in Times Square, that was really, really cool. That was so impressive.
I gotta say, being there, they only did it for an hour. It was on the first day of the event from 8:30 a.m. till 9:30 a.m. They do the NFT takeover of Times Square, and everywhere you look, there's NFTs and advertisements for various different NFT companies. The conference itself, of course, NFT.NYC. That was pretty spectacular. Now, the one thing I would say, they had a bit of an interesting booking mix-up. it happened to be the International Yoga Conference on the same week. So you see these NFTs everywhere on the billboards, and then you have all these yogis in the middle doing their thing. It was quite an interesting juxtaposition, I gotta say. But apparently, it was completely unintentional. The two different parties didn't know they'd both booked Times Square for the same time.
Mate, at least it was yoga and not like, farming or
Well, that could have been a
pharmaceuticals or,
disaster. Yeah,
it could have been
yeah,
like something terrible,
yeah. You're not kidding.
maybe
Yeah,
bodybuilding might work, I
yeah.
suppose. But no, I think that when you saw all that digital art together in that kind of, I mean, look, Times Square is impressive at the best of times, right? But when you see everything together like that in that really kind of like moment, it's a bit like when you go to a club and you suddenly hear a record like on a big sound system and the bass is pumping and the top end's really crispy and it's like slamming you, and you're like, oh my god, I listened to this track at home, it sounded really like weak, and then I put in a club and of course it completely comes alive. I get the same feeling when I saw the footage of all that digital artwork in Times Square. I got that feeling of like, wow, it really connects now. I really get it because, the digital art, it just looks so much better than a bunch of bloody adverts and stuff like that at the end of the day. I can't wait for them to take over Piccadilly Circus. That's going to be really cool.
Hey,
well, and I guess, Tommy, we've got something we can't announce coming up very soon that will allow us to showcase some pretty beautiful digital art.
Yes, we have indeed, but we can't announce it just yet. But watch this space, definitely, guys. Keep an eye on our social media. Remember to follow us, obviously TokenTraxx, and follow everybody in the room. We're one big family here at TokenTraxx. We do this every week on Thursdays at 4:30, I think, or 5:30. 5:30. We've moved it up. So we do it every week at 5:30. Set your alarms. Come along. We always have really interesting people come along. Amazing to have Rich and Jason with us today, and of course Tim and Jess as well from TokenTraxx. So it's always nice to have lots of people. For those that don't know, my name is Tommy D, and I'm actually a music producer and a songwriter. But I also was the originator and founder of TokenTraxx. It was my idea to kind of try and work out a way of fitting blockchain and music together. And one of the things that I just absolutely love is the ability for us to sit down with incredible brains like Jason's and Jess's and Richard's and just have these kind of discussions. I'm an artist. I'm a collector. I'm a DJ. I'm a producer. How does blockchain work for me? And if you have any of those kinds of questions, you are welcome to come up on stage and ask us. We've got about 10 minutes left. But also, if you want to take this conversation with TokenTraxx further, you can. I think, Jason, is it talent@tokentraxx.com? Is that the email? Email us there. Talent.
And I apologize, Tommy. I have to bounce, but
it's cool, man.
It's been so cool, and I hope you invite me back.
No, we won't. No, can't. No, never having you back again.
Let's leave it there then.
No, you're always welcome, man. Nice, always jump in. Always, man.
Bye,
always.
Jason. Next time we'll talk about the gorillas. Bye.
Yeah, well, why not? Yeah, talk
See you,
about
Jason.
Forever. See ya.
See you, mate. For those that don't know, Jason was the mastermind behind the marketing of the gorillas. He was head of the marketing at EMI Records, which of course Parlophone Records, which of course had Gorillas. And yeah, Jason basically, worked with Damon and Jamie Hewlett to come up with all these amazing concepts that we all absolutely know and love. And Miles Leonard, who is also, he unfortunately couldn't make it to our space today, but he's also a founder of TokenTraxx along with myself, and he was in fact the head of Parlophone when they did it. And he tells a great story about how they just literally sat down one day and said, we've got this idea for this cartoon band, and we're not going to be featured in it, and it's just going to be cartoon characters. And you got to say, to a major label with an artist that has made a lot of money for the label in one kind of way, to suddenly go in such a huge tangent and say that they're going to do this, and for the label to back them, for people like Miles and Jason to back them, is really courageous and brave. And I think labels get a bad rep sometimes, but that's generally to do with the politics and the legal side of what goes on, the contracts, whatever. The creative people that I've met, some of the most incredible creative people in major labels. They are really, really brilliant and real music lovers and real passionate music lovers as well. So we must always remember that there's a lot of love for the artist in major labels. We got 5 minutes left before we're going to go. Rich, I want to ask you one more question about NFT NYC, and it's, you know, what do you expect to see next year?
Wow, that's a tough one. I think we're going to see a lot more dynamic and interactive NFTs next year. It seems like we were just on the cusp that people are building these kind of things. You know, right now we've gotten quite used to just static NFTs. They don't change over time. You can't customize them, things like that. I think that is going to be a movement that we see a lot of next year, because it seems like people were developing those kind of concepts right now, incorporating music, incorporating animations, incorporating customization, that sort of thing, evolution over time. And I think next year, probably these kinds of NFTs will get a lot of prime time.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's a great insight from you to highlight that, because I mean, you know, we've got 5 senses, right? So let's try and hit people on as many of those senses as possible. And you know, to that end, I suppose this is another thing that we try and do at TokenTraxx, is we try and say to the artist, you know, Ratboy's a great example. He's a fantastic designer, drawer, you know, illustrator, graphic designs, all kinds of stuff. He builds bonkers machines in his studio and like customizes mopeds and cars, and he's a really interesting character, and of course makes great music. So, you know, we really wanted, when we sat down with him, we really wanted to kind of come up with something that was not just here's an NFT of this. And that's when we hit upon this idea of dystopia, which is this kind of weird messed up world with 4 gangs, and he's illustrated all 4 of the gangs, and he's made music for each of the 4 gangs. So it's a great project. Go and check it out. And as I say, we're gonna, you know, it's gonna turn into a game. So there's gonna be a lot of fun to have from owning one of those NFTs. Guys, I'm gonna jump off because I am also got something that I've got a call at 6:30. So I'm gonna pass you back now to the, you know, hands of Jess and Tim, who are going to probably wind us up. So I want to say huge, massive thanks to Rich for coming and joining us, mate. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Good to be here.
Yeah, Tommy, thank you so much, brother. Yeah, I feel like Spinal Tap at the very end of the song where the bass player finally gets out of the pod. That's what it felt like with the technical. But yeah, man, it's great to have you, and Richard. It's been great. Glastonbury was amazing with the collaborative action that was going on with Paul McCartney, Dave Grohl, John Lennon had a feature piece up there where they flew it in. It was very cool, very exciting. And yeah, the future is having utility, having that interaction with live crowds, and very, very eager to see what happens for next year.
Thanks everyone for joining today. Thank you, Richard. And yeah, please join us again. And next week we'll hopefully have, well, as we always say, stay tuned. We can't tell you right now, but we have some exciting news. And thanks everyone who joined us today. And thank you, Tim. Thank you, Uplando.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everyone. See you next Thursday.